Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Please, please listen closely to these words from American economist and social theorist Thomas Sowell, and boy, do they hit home. Listen to this. Each new generation born is, in effect, an invasion of civilization by little barbarians who must be civilized before it's too late. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America on a Tuesday, and we need another patriot. Come on, be proud of the red, white, and blue, and call in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. And a good morning to you and yours. I'm Zeb Bell, sitting in the studio at Zeb at the Ranch with, of course, our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the best in tires and, of course, safe, clean environment. And, of course, let's not also forget our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Let's go to the phone line and have a real-life patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning, Zeb. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, you did a phenomenal job. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you for allowing me.
All righty. Hey, it's time for the weather, and the weather brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn on the Burley Paul Highway. You can't miss them. No, you'd have to wear a blindfold not to miss. I'm telling you what, they've got equipment all over the place. The best of tools and equipment for you to finish any kind of a construction project. And if you're not sure what you need, why don't you call Roger and the crew before you run over? 678-3122. K&R Rental on the Burley Paul Highway. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
The air quality advisory is going to be in effect for the rest of the week due to all of the wildfires burning in our area. So if you have upper respiratory issues, you really do want to limit your time outside. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting, again, smoke in the area with a high of about 88. Tonight, still going to be hazy with a low 47. By tomorrow, sunny skies, still smoky, high of about 90 with an overnight low of 51. Pretty much the same for Thursday. Friday, we do have a very slight chance of afternoon showers, partly sunny skies, high of 81. Then rain showers and thunderstorms for Friday night with a low of 47. That's a look at your weather for 7th Range.
Gina, thank you very much. Right now at my studio, I've got 54 degrees outside. And the weather brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn. Roger gets there really early in the morning with the rest of the folks to serve you with the best of tools and equipment for long and short-term rental. They've got the best. They've got what you need at K&R Rental. I want to remind you, too, about our dear friends at Daryl's Cleaners. They get up early in the morning and start things off with the best of cleaning, dry cleaning, and also washing your clothes. If you don't have time, wash, dry, fold, you betcha they'll take care of your clothes just like Mama used to at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Kevin and Cindy and the staff are really committed to serving you. We've been taking our clothes in there for years and years. They're located at 1223 Albion Union Avenue in Burley. Daryl's Cleaners. You stop in and see those good folks today. One more quick word, and that's a great big shout out and thank you to Ramsey Heating and Electric. They've been riding the horse with us on this program ever since we started, and a great big kudo to them and the great job they have done for almost 7 decades with all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call 678-0459. Open 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. Ramsey Heating and Electric. Well, I wonder who this is. Good morning, caller.
Well, sometimes I wonder who I am.
Okay.
Anyway, good morning to you, Zeb.
Thank you.
And Deanne.
Thank you.
May the best be with her.
She is getting better, and I just, Keith, I got to tell you that there is the power of prayer, and nobody's going to convince me differently. She is getting better and stronger every day, and I'm happy as a teenager right now. I'll tell you what, I'm just tickled to death.
Zeb, when it comes to prayer, you can't just say it. You got to mean it.
You better believe it.
And that's what it's all about.
Yep. What can I do for you this morning?
Well, for 47 minutes yesterday, I listened to Joe Biden.
Oh, my. How interesting.
And he rambled on and rambled on. And did you know that when him and Barack were in charge, we didn't have near as many fires in California and on the West Coast, but Trump has really messed things up,
Oh, wait a minute. I want to get right in here because, boy, you talk about setting off the mood on the first phone call. You did it, my friend. You did it. I am sick and tired of hearing these absolute lunatics yell, climate change, climate change, climate change. Well, why don't the United States on federal lands clean up the doggone foliage and the dead brush and the leaves and the trees that have been tipped over? Go in and harvest that wood instead of letting it rot and turn into a tinderbox. Keith, you did it. You got my blood pressure up this morning. I'm sick and tired of these knot-headed greens all the time yelling climate change when the forests need management. Underline that word, management. Now, Mr. Cottam, you have the ball.
In Europe, these towns are called tree cities.
Yeah.
Because they're actually built into the forest.
Yep.
They keep the forest squeaky clean.
Yes.
And everything. They don't have these problems. I wonder why.
You got it. Keith, that was really well done. I appreciate what you did this morning. You started it off. You got my blood pumping, and my eyes are open wide. Thank you, my dear friend, for your call. God bless you. Thanks.
What about my star?
Well, it's in the mail. Thanks, Keith.
Here's my ballot.
I know. Yeah, no, don't go there. Don't go there. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, I'll be right there. You can bank on it. I want to tell everybody about good food, good eating, all the time, anytime. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. Thomas and Michelle, these are the nicest people that work there and care for the way you are treated. And you're going to get a great meal. I love breakfast. I've said that a million times, and I go in there. I don't care if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I want breakfast. And they have it. Lunch, dinner, all the desserts, everything. And a menu that's going to knock your boots off delicious. At Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner at 611 North Overland in Burley. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. At the Burley Senior Center today, we're having chicken Alfredo and all the trimmings. It'll be a great lunch. If you can't make it, call and they'll have one ready to go.
And it's only $5, right, Joe?
That's right.
Well, we'll send everybody over. And, Joe, you are the ever-ready bunny. I mean, every day you're always up and perky and ready to go. God bless you, man. Thanks.
That's right. That's what happens when you get to be 95.
Oh, my goodness. When your book going to come out? Are you going to finish it?
What?
I said, when are you going to write your book? Are you going to finish it?
No, it's going to be in Braille.
Joe, God bless you. Thank you very much. With the Senior Center.
All you do.
You're welcome, my dear friend. The Senior Center on Overland Avenue in Burley, Joe Taylor. Nobody better than Joe. I just think the world of him. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. Well, good news on the end.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
One thing that's concerning me is the fact that NFL is now turning into a political organization. That really bothers me.
Well, let me just say this, Tony, and I mentioned this yesterday, and as of 11:30 this morning after the program, I am trying to get Jason Whitlock, a sports columnist. You've seen him on television for ESPN, etc., and he wrote an outstanding, I've got it here, and I've got it all highlighted and everything. He wrote an outstanding story called American Sports Are Letting America Down. And we're going to try to get Jason on our program because everything you said and is true about sports today. It's turned into a political happening, and people like LeBron James and sadly many others are using it as a forum to talk about Marxist groups and brag about Marxist groups like Black Lives Matter. And so we're going to try to have him on the program.
Well, I think they're trying to program the people that are attending these football games
Yes.
to go over to their side.
Yes.
And this would be more votes for somebody like Biden.
I do not watch football and want to be deluged with logos that say Black Lives Matter or any other political statement. I don't want to have that. I don't want it in football. I don't want it in baseball. I don't want it in basketball. But players, and I keep downplaying LeBron James. I don't like the man. I can't stand the man. He may be one of the greatest basketball players ever, but he's brought politics and racism into basketball. He's one of the leaders of bringing it into the NBA, and I despise the man.
Well, I'm calling the Dish Network this morning, and I'm going to drop the ESPN channels and any other channel that endorses football or basketball.
I think that what you're doing as a protest, many people are doing. And I, for one, I'm not watching my favorite team that I grew up with, for heaven's sakes, and that's the Green Bay Packers. I have not watched one single NBA playoff game, nor do I intend to. I have not watched one single Major League Baseball game, nor do I intend to. It's my way of protesting just like yours. I find these athletes to be overpaid, underworked prima donnas that are involved in political issues when they ought to keep their big mouths shut.
Well, unfortunately, Roger Goodell has seen to it. He's caved into these players on the football field now to keep these players from revolting on the field.
Roger Goodell should quit his job and take what he's best suited for, and that's being a janitor in a office building cleaning restrooms.
Would you?
Thank you, Tony.
Zeb, I won't take up any more of your time.
All right. God bless you, man. Thank you so much. And I meant what I said. I have no use for Roger Goodell. What a wuss. What a wimp. I mean, the man has no business representing the National Football League. What a joke. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Don't go away. I want to remind everybody about Dino's Septic Service. They do the job that you and I don't want to do. I don't want to stand out there pumping a septic tank. I know a couple of years ago we had trouble, and all of a sudden we were told about Dino's Septic Service, and wow. I mean, these people are fast, fair, friendly service. I mean, they're there doing the job. we don't want to do. Liquid waste removal, sewer and sink drain lines cleaned, water and sewer lines installed, backhoe services. They're the best with the most modern of equipment and really good people. Dino Septic Service. Call them at 436-6526 or 678-1638. With a big truck that says smells cargo on the way, Dino's Septic Service. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
My friend.
Yeah, they're the king of dirty jobs, aren't they?
Yes. I tell you what, they are good people. Good people.
Yes. Anyway, LeBron James wants, equal justice and for people to be treated equal and everything, but yet he stands up for the Chinese, the Communist Party of China.
Yep.
And they're the worst for human rights in the world.
Well, let me inject something right there. And it goes without saying, LeBron James is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I mean, he got out of high school and all the pro teams and all the pro scouts were after him. He is, and I'm going to give him this accolade, he is an outstanding athlete. He's an outstanding basketball player and will go down in the annals of basketball as the best or one of the best. But as far as having any comprehensive skills as to what's really going on and trying to be a leader from the basketball court, he is as dumb as a rock.
You nailed it right there. And don't insult the rock.
Yeah, please.
I mean, this man, he has sold his soul for the almighty dollar.
Yes. Well, he's not the only one. I mean, I don't want to lump LeBron James into put him up on a ladder and say you're the only one. He's not. I mean, when you look at the NBA and you look at some of the coaches, Steve Kerr, I lump into the same category. Steve Kerr and many other coaches and players have come out against conservative, and they're all in favor of Black Lives Matter. And really, Doug, have you ever heard a sports reporter with any guts at all, ask a question of Steve Kerr or LeBron James or any of these players and coaches about real politics? I mean, really pin them down. And I would bet you a steak dinner they're going to go and stutter and stammer. They really don't know.
They don't. They go the way they think they're going to make their money.
Yep.
They really, if they cared about Black Lives Matter, if they really cared about Black lives, why aren't they up in arms about what's going on in Detroit and New York? Why aren't they up in arms about all of the abortions?
Or the average of over 52 shootings per weekend in Chicago.
The only Black lives they worry about is when it has been taken by a policeman.
Yeah.
99.9% of them are justified.
You know what would you have done? Okay, you're now wearing a uniform. And you are now going up to a house with your partner to investigate and try to settle a domestic dispute. You hear screaming. You hear kids crying. And inside is this black man that is wielding a knife and threatening, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or former wife. And out the door he comes carrying the knife, and he starts running at the one policeman with the knife. Are you going to stand there and take the brunt of his run and attack with a knife, or are you going to take him down?
I'm going to take him down to save my life and that young lady's and those kids.
That's right.
I mean, had those police officers not showed up, can you imagine maybe what had happened to that woman and those kids?
Why is it, and I'm going to really lay it on the table here, folks, and you can call me racist and anything else you want. I'm used to some of those negativities. But why is it that we're supposed to leave criminals that happen to be black alone? We can't touch them. Why?
I have no idea, Zep.
Well, is it true or not?
Pardon? I'm sorry.
Is it true or not that according to the riots with Floyd and Blake and the rest of these, and now this guy with a knife, I guess we're supposed to leave perpetrators alone because of their skin color?
Well, you can't identify them like as such when you announce a suspect.
Want to bet?
You're supposed to say this foot, this tall, this heavy. You're not even supposed to say if it's male or female.
I just don't understand the mindset in this country, Doug, as to where you got a criminal. You got a guy that's running at a policeman with a knife, and he's intent on stabbing the policeman. The cop turns around, and bang, that's it. The guy's done. History, toast. All of a sudden, we have to have riots, and they hold this dead black man up in honor as if he was the Pope. This is insane.
Exactly. It is insane. And just like George Floyd, had they waited for the toxicology report, he died of a fentanyl overdose.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, come on, people. What happened to innocent until proven guilty?
Yeah.
Unless you wear a badge, and if you wear a badge, then you're guilty no matter what you do.
And I'm going to say this. I got another caller waiting, and hold on, caller. I'll be right there. But I've watched at least 30 times, and I want to ask you a question and anybody else. When you watch the video of that perpetrator walking up to that squad car in L.A. and shooting twice the lady cop and the other cop in the head, what was your impression of the person that did the shooting? I'm going to tell you my viewpoint right now. This was a young kid. This was a young kid that was getting into a gang, and I would be willing to bet donuts to dollar bills that was part of an initiation fee or whatever. Look how he ran away. I mean, very short and ran like a kid, dressed like a kid. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts exactly. That's my thoughts exactly. And for the government and the prosecutors and the judges to be letting these people out on no bail, turning them back out on the street for doing a crime, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, that's the integrity that's lost in our judicial system right now. There is no crime that is going to be punished. There is no severity. And quite frankly, I hope they find this punk, this worthless shooter, this skin that's hanging on bones that is absolutely not part of society, and they punish him severely. If a life is lost when they catch him, so be it.
Well, they need to catch him, and then they need to interrogate him, find out if it was a gang, and then go after the gang.
I agree, but here's a woman that is going to be disfigured for the rest of her life, and she has a little child, and another guy shot in the forehead. Again, they're going to have disfigurement, they're going to have lots of surgeries and everything else. I am fed up with the target practice that's going on against our police.
I am too. That's why I've got a flag hanging off my building that has a blue line in it.
God bless you. Hey, I got another call. Thanks.
Everybody, let's do what we can for senior centers. Donate your excess garden stuff. Go eat there, and you'll leave with a full tummy and a full heart.
Bingo. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. Thank you. Caller number 2, you've been very patient. Go ahead, please.
Zeb, you're right on the subject I was going to talk about, and that is about these two people being ambushed. That's what I call it, ambushed. And this guy running off. Well, here's LeBron James, the king of basketball, so to speak, is offering a reward. Now, nobody has said how much, and nobody has seen the color of his money.
There's such a thing as digging a hole and digging deeper, and then finally you realize the hole you're digging is going to bury you, and then you try to climb out of the hole and save face somewhat. I don't care if LeBron James all of a sudden took much of his millions and donated it to people all over the world. I still can't stand the guy because of what he's done, what he's caused, what he's helped perpetrate with this Black Lives Matter. I don't like him, and I never will.
You can't buy your way out of hell.
There you go. Well said. Hey, Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you. God bless you. Have a good day. Thank you. I want to say something else that really turned me off last night when I was watching television and catching up on the news stories I wanted to talk about this morning, and then this morning also back calls to New York and Washington, D.C. Peter Strzok from the FBI, you know, the absolutely lowlife that came forward. What a piece of work he is. Now think about this. Peter Strzok and his lover with the FBI. He was on TV yesterday, and of course he's got a book coming out. Oh, yeah, there's always an angle. There's always something that'll help the book sales. Well, he came out, and he's still pushing the thought that the Mueller investigation and all the left-wing Democratic attorneys and investigators and the millions and millions and millions of dollars were wrong, and Trump is still held under the thumb of Russia's Putin. That's what Strzok is saying. And I will say this about Peter Strzok. When you clean out a horse stall, what you put in the wheelbarrow is Peter Strzok. Enough said. I want to remind you about Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts. 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Nampa location for all the equipment you need. All the Bobcats, all the shapes and sizes, all the trenchers and the scissor lifts, and they've got the Doosan wheel loaders and excavators. Whew! They got everything for all the lifting, the digging, the pushing, the carrying, every job at Barry Equipment and Rental. Stop in. 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin. Great lease programs, and don't forget super financing programs to buy at Barry Equipment and Rental. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. You know, we have our police officers being shot while in a squad car, and others are targets for the despicable left. And cities are burning and being looted, and punks, worthless punks, are destroying everything. And Biden comes out of the basement to talk about the idiotic horrors of climate change. I mean, do you have to be a rocket scientist to understand that the left is completely off base and they're going to get picked off? I mean, for heaven's sakes, law and order in this country should reign supreme as number one. We've got to restore law and order. You've got to have a civilized society. You've got to stop all the vermin from taking over and looting, burning, killing, shooting. It's got to stop. And Joe comes out, senile Joe. Well, we've got to stop climate change. You can't stop climate change. I get really upset with these people that always kind of, pull their tie a little tighter, straighten it, and kind of sit up a little straighter and think that they are smarter than everybody else. And that's the picture of the left on climate change. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I will keep reiterating this, that climate change is held to the control of one being, and that's God. Not all scientists agree as to climate change. Not at all. And when they come out with these blanket statements of 95% or 98% of scientists say that it's true, well, of the ones that they maybe interviewed or kept record with. But time and time again, of all the people I've had on this program, reputable scientific people that say, well, wait a minute, no, we're not going to go along with all this climate change. There's been too much mismanagement or no management at all on our forests in this United States of America. California is a prime example. Too much fuel creating too much of a fire, and that's not due to climate change. Let's get our head out of our sandbox, please. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Well, I don't mean to take up all your time.
Well, you sure are.
Well, okay, well, enjoy it while I'm doing it.
All right, what do you got, Keith?
Okay, Joe Biden, when I was listening for that 47 minutes to him, how, he's going to do away with fracking, he's going to do away with coal mining, all of these things, and we're going to have thousands of green new jobs.
Yeah, but stop right there.
How can that be?
Stop right there. They might say they're going to have thousands of brand new jobs, but what about the absolute millions of people? And that number's not extreme at all. The millions of people that are going to be put out of work because of a so-called getting rid of and cancellation of fossil fuels. The idiocy of the left just shows no bounds. Just about the time I think they've hit the bottom as far as being dumb, they dig a little deeper.
Yeah, and if, let's just say he does get elected and we shut down the fossil fuels and all that stuff, the only green jobs they're going to get are building these stupid windmills and solar panels, which are only good for 10 years.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, Keith. I'm glad you brought this up because at 9:06 this morning, our dear friend Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance, we're going to be talking about this. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the preview. Thank you. God bless you. Thanks.
You bet.
All right. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. There's another factor that's been involved. 50 years ago, the EPA banned DDT. DDT was used effectively to control the pine beetle.
Yep.
And, of course, now traveling around the forest, zeb, are dying. And nothing's really being done. There's been no replacement for DDT, which got a bad rap. But the William Ruckelshaus, who just passed away recently, I was on a task force. That's one of the reasons I'm in Idaho, is because I lost my job when they banned the chlorinated hydrocarbons. So I know the first-hand story. There was over 9,000 pages of testimony over several months defending DDT with some restrictions. William Ruckelshaus, who came from the World Wildlife Fund, never attended any of the hearings, and reports are that he never read any of the transcripts. The stroke of a pen, he banned DDT.
Yep.
Not only our forests are dying because of the lack of DDT or some kind of control on the pine beetle.
Well, wait a minute. And along with that...
Malaria was almost wiped out worldwide.
Yeah.
50 years ago.
But Adrian, let me jump in. Adrian, let me jump in for a second. I totally agree with you on DDT, and I've got books and volumes, many of which are thanks to you over the years of providing me with information and bona fide thought on the writings of DDT. But along with a total mismanagement or no management at all in the forest to let these fuels get bigger and deeper and more sinister every year, all of this has turned into a powder keg.
Oh, absolutely. I came to Twin Falls 49 years ago tomorrow, and from California. There 2 years on my first job out of college. And I can tell you, they have built the last of the new dams that they built was above Modesto, called the Don Pedro. They have built no new dams. They have to import all their electricity pretty much now to keep the lights on. And it's just incredible how the environments that have destroyed. The power companies can't even control the trees or brush and so forth under their major power.
That's right. That's right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Adrian, I got to run. I got another commercial break, but I really would like to get you back on the show instead of on the phone so that we can talk more about this. You and I had some really good programs regarding climate change, global warming, the dunce cap that's worn by Al Gore, et cetera, that started it. So please try to get a hold of me and we'll get you back on the air. I appreciate that.
Well, this whole global warming thing is the biggest hoax. It's terrible.
I know it is.
It's just unbelievable how they're using that as the poster child to lock down the whole world along with the coronavirus now. So
I agree.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. I'll try and get back to you and see if we can work out something.
All right. I appreciate it, Adrian. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. There's one other story I've got to put out here this morning, and I want my audience to respond to this. Do you know that the Democrats are pulling out all the corks in the bottle to try to get more Democrats? In San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's hometown. In San Francisco, they are now pushing for 16-year-olds to vote. 16-year-olds! Yeah, it went from 21 to 18, which I can understand because 18-year-olds are serving our country, etc. But 16-year-olds to vote? Come on, let's be really honest about 16-year-olds. And if any 16-year-olds are out there are offended by this, I don't care. 16-year-olds haven't got a clue how to pour cereal in a bowl, or they're battling with teenage acne. And now San Francisco wants 16-year-olds to vote and help decide major items for those of us that have raised families and paid taxes and held jobs. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Why not lower it to 10 years of age? And they can go vote on a candy wrapper, for heaven's sakes. What's wrong with this country? Let's establish some guidelines of common sense. Oh, wait a minute. Common sense and the Democrats. Those two don't float on the same boat. Holy smokes, this is absolutely nuts. Well, we want to lower it to 16. What are your thoughts on that? Come on, give me a call. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Holy smokes. Why not take the baby stroller and put some ink on the thumb and let the baby vote? Oh, for heaven's sakes. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. I'm mad.
I know you are, Mr. Bell, and so am I. The only way they're going to win this is to be able to lower the vote to 16.
Or change the vote, or illegally have the mail-in vote.
Right, those two things. That's the only way they're going to win this. And, you know, most 16-year-olds don't even know how to start a dadgum lawnmower.
You know, Donna, honestly, you're a grandmother. I'm a grandfather, and I'm not trying to denigrate 16-year-olds. God bless them. They're going through a certain part of their life where you got to sit back and laugh and love and forgive and everything. But don't you give me the world issues to a 16-year-old. They haven't got a clue.
No, they don't. Number one, they're not being taught.
Yep, bingo.
You know, and so for them to, I mean, it's just another absurd gimmick for the left to throw out there. And if you stop and think about it, Nancy Pelosi ain't got the brains of a 16-year-old either.
Oh, no, there you're really discrediting 16-year-olds because I was going to say she's far less.
No, I have grandchildren also, and you know they're pretty knowledgeable. But you know what? It comes from home. They have to be taught from home, not by outside influences.
Well, wait a minute, though. To be fair to you and George, you are blessed with a young man that's your grandson that was raised properly and had a lot of guidance with you and George on flag education, pride in America, what is right, what is wrong. So there are exceptions. But in general, 16-year-olds, they're only concerned maybe about going with their friends or maybe playing basketball or maybe doing something. You know, really, they couldn't care less about world affairs. They're going to be easily led as to who they might put a check mark next to their name. I think the insanity of this is absolutely repulsive.
Yes, it is, and thank you so much for acknowledging, Adam. You know, we have a lot. We really do. We have a lot. Your grandsons are amazing. You know, but they're taught from an early age. Some of these, I'm not going to say most. The ones that we worked with at the program we had last Friday, they are amazing teenagers.
I agree. But you know, why are we taking? I think it's absolutely harmful to take 16-year-olds and try to form them into world knowledgeable adults. Let them be kids.
Yep. Let them go out there and drag race their putt-putts down the highway and, just enjoy life.
I agree. Don, God bless you. I got to run. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Caller number 2, I'm going to ask you your patience, please. Yours truly is running a little bit over time, so I've got to get a weather forecast on. I'll get right with you, I promise, in 60 seconds. Our weather brought to you by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, and believe me, hearing affects every aspect of your life. And when you have hearing problems, I urge you, underline the word urge, to go to Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. They know and they have the latest of equipment and technology to help you. 312-0957. 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
The air quality advisory is going to be in effect for the rest of the week due to all of the wildfires burning in our area. So if you have upper respiratory issues, you really do want to limit your time outside. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting, again, smoke in the area with a high of about 88. Tonight, still going to be hazy with a low 47. By tomorrow, sunny skies, still smoky, high of about 90 with an overnight low of 51. Pretty much the same for Thursday. Friday, we do have a very slight chance of afternoon showers, partly sunny skies, high of 81. Then rain showers and thunderstorms for Friday night with a low of 47. That's look at your weather for 7 to rain.
She does a great job on the weather every day. Thank you, Gina. And the weather brought to you by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, right behind the Minidoka County Hospital, across from the emergency ward, and the number to call for a hearing screening, 312-0957. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. You have to realize what has taken over San Francisco and who is running these 16-year-olders. They just got another whole generation of potheads that are taking that part of the country over.
Yeah. Yeah,
they can do whatever they want with these 16-year-olders because the 16-year-olds don't know any better.
Can you
go up to San Francisco a lot?
Yeah. Can you think back when you were a kid? Honestly, give me a little appraisal here of your youth. Can you think back to where you were 16 years of age, and honestly, did you have any sense of politics? Did you understand what's going on in world affairs? Did you understand about the economy? Did you understand about national security? Did you?
No, I didn't. All we were out there was run the streets and have fun with the boys, and we didn't care what happened.
I mean, the lunacy of trying to lower it to 16 years of age is, it's almost a crime. It's almost criminal to put kids in a voting booth where they haven't got a clue. I mean, they're sitting there and they go, well, that sounds good, or I talked to Ralphie, my big brother, and he said to vote for so-and-so. That's insane.
Well, this generation that's raising these 16 years older, they're having more and more children that they can control to get into politics to destroy this country.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, I got to tell you something, Tony. The old saying is, we're going to hell in a handbasket. Well, we've got the Democrats carrying the basket, I'll tell you that.
That's the only reason why they're running what's her name, Harris,
yeah,
and Biden. They're not doing anything to run the country to improve conditions in the country. They want to destroy Donald Trump, and by destroying him, they'll be able to destroy this country and reshape it.
I could not agree more. Very well said. Tony, thank you for your call. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. A 16-year-old is very easily influenced by peer pressure.
Uh-huh.
And thus is their plan.
Yep. You got it there, Nelson. Absolutely true. Hey, by the way, while you're on the phone with me really quick, did you hear Kamala Harris put her foot in her mouth, or maybe she did it on purpose? Did you hear about that?
Yes, it was factual. It's not, it wasn't an accident. She just let it slip to the American people.
Yeah, and let's just kind of tell everybody what she did. She accidentally, quote unquote, touting plans for a Harris administration. She was speaking about the economy, and she said that in the Harris administration, oh, well, I meant to say Harris and Biden administration, and then she turned it and says Biden-Harris administration. You know, remember the song, and I had to talk to Sean about this earlier this morning before I signed on the air. Remember the song, and I couldn't remember the group name, and I asked Sean, and he remembered it, called The Culture Club, and they had that song, comma, 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 chameleon, and it was all about changing spots. Well, that's Kamala Harris.
Exactly. Kamala Harris is like a sailboat. Whichever way the wind blows is where she'll go.
Yeah, and if the wind's not blowing, the whole deal with her, she's dead in the water.
You got that right.
I got another call, buddy. See you later. Thanks. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Quickly, I got 1.5 minutes.
Okay, let's go back to the 1940s when we had World War II going. I don't know, you're like 72, and I'm like 83.
Okay.
I went through this rationing period where food was rationed, gasoline was rationed, tires were rationed. All of these things were rationed. A 16-year-old wouldn't have any idea what a ration is.
You've got that right. I mean, the incompetency, the idiocy, the absolute stupidity of thinking that 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote. I mean, please, pull the wagon up and pull it yourself without the horse. It's stupid. Keith, God bless you. That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, buddy. I want to remind everybody about your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Absolutely the best. That's it. Plain and simple. The best. All 7 locations. They've got the best of tires, all sizes, all tread designs. They've got the best of brake service. They've got the best of front end alignment, shocks and struts, the best of batteries. What are you waiting for? Get in and work with the best. And above all, the best of service to you. James in Buell, Dan on Pole Line in Twin Falls, Lane in Rupert, Mike in Jerome, Dave on Blue Lakes in Twin, the Twist family in Paul, and my buddy Trent on Overland in Burley. Absolutely the best. You'll see what I mean. You drive in at any of the 7 locations, and they come at a high lope to serve you. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. You want to hear something else that just absolutely goes under the headline of stupid? Now there are people, and I'm not making this up, I am not making this up. There are people that are so concerned about the spread of the coronavirus that they want us to stop singing Happy Birthday. Why? Because happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. There's too much emphasis, they say, on the P, like happy, and birthday, and by saying those words and singing them, we let out too much oxygen and possibly too many germs into the air. I told you. I'm not making this up. Now the do for all people, and they must conform to their means, are saying, don't sing happy birthday anymore. I will continue to do so. We're going to take a little break right now, but we're going to head to the news and listen to what the big boys are going to say to mess up everything we've put together in the last hour. Coming up at 9:06, Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance, and then David Sussman. I had him on the program here about 2-3 weeks ago. He's a good guy, sharp guy, political economic. Can I try that again without biting my tongue? Political economic analyst. There you go. Say that fast 5 times. We'll have lunch at noon. Here we go to the news. I'll be back in 7. Woo, yeah. That fire is directly south of me, and wow, is the smoke ever thick right here, I'll tell you. Keeping Deanne in the house, and me too. It's not good out there, so be careful. Zeb at the Ranch, brought to you by your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with a very safe, clean environment and the best in tires, along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, this good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Oh, thank you much. Don't forget they've got all the dumpsters, and you say, what do I need a dumpster for? Well, maybe you're going to clean out your basement. Maybe you're going to clean out your garage, or in my case, I've got to have another run at this office. Holy smokes. And you need a dumpster? Well, they've got them in various sizes. In my condition, I'll just have it parked out the back window and just pitch and throw, and get rid of all the garbage in my office. I'll tell you what, they're good. They'll drop it off, and then you fill it up, they'll come and get it. Dumpsters from Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. 734-6969. Want to give a great big thank you also to our friends over at Hanson Mortuary, Joel Heward, family, and staff. Caring people. I mean, in today's age, it's really a blessing and a treat to find people that care about other people, and they do at Hanson Mortuary and families. And at Hanson Mortuary, they have very flexible hours to serve you and your family. Absolutely. When there's the passing of a loved one, they always provide the families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, and again, always upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please call 436-5636, Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert, and Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. One other quick note before I go to my dear friend Dan. I want to remind everybody about our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Absolutely, Nick Greenwell and the staff, they care. That's the whole thing right there. They care. They care about getting you back to being you. They know all the exercises. They've got the hydrotherapy pool. They've got it all. So all you have to do is just give them a call at 678-1191. Where are they located? Thought you'd never ask. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Again, that number, you make the call, they'll help you get back in shape. 678-1191. There is a gentleman on the other end of the line that we were talking earlier this morning, and I think he summed it up absolutely perfect in one word: the madness. The madness that's going on in this country and the insanity that is being employed and distributed all over the country by the left. And here comes my dear friend with the American Energy Alliance, Dan Kish. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Zeb.
I I don't even know where to start. For the first time in my adult life, I'm sitting here kind of thinking, well, do I go here? Do I go there? The insane attitude of the left and how they're trying to get Joe Biden elected by staying in a basement. And then the ineptitude, or perhaps it wasn't ineptitude, she did it on purpose, of Kamala Harris saying, well, the Harris administration will do such and such. It kind of makes you wonder what's going on, that the left hand never really found out that they had a right hand. What's going on here?
Well, I'll tell you, Zeb, it's like the great crack-up. I mean, we saw it yesterday. We saw it yesterday. The president went out to look at the forest fires on the West Coast. And listen, my entire career, which started 40 years ago, dealt with issues like public land management, forestry, and mining, and oil and gas, and energy, and you name it. And when I was still wet behind the ears, we were warning against designations of lands that would preclude any roads from being built or any kind of active timber management, and pointing to the very kinds of things that are happening now as inevitabilities if they didn't manage the forest.
Yes.
They don't have this problem on the Canadian side of the border. They have forest fires in some of their black spruce areas to the north. Those are just natural, that happen all the time. But what is happening on the West Coast right now with these catastrophic fires is what happens if you never go to the if you never take your stuff to the dump.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to catch fire.
Yep.
And that's what the problem has been. And yet they're running around blaming it on global warming, because forest management actually requires some effort, and let the silviculturists and the people who understand timber management take over. And they don't want to let anybody take over. They want to take over our lives by control of our energy. So they'd rather use this as an opportunity to talk about global warming than to talk about what anybody knows, which is that if you don't take care of your land, it's going to go to pot. And that's what's going on.
You know, I am so glad to hear you say this, Dan, and give a good explanation, because yesterday I was on the phone with some of my friends down in California that are ranchers that I've known for years, and I can't even begin to use some of the language that they used in their explanation about their so-called leadership with Governor Gavin Newsom and the rest of their cohorts. They are absolutely incensed against a mismanagement or no management of the lands in California that are now encroaching, and many have, on their private lands and destroyed their businesses. They are enraged.
As they should be, Zeb. I mean, this is sinful. God put us here to be good stewards of his earth. That doesn't mean destroy it. It doesn't mean ignore it. It means become good stewards. And we have the capacity to do that. But what happens is a bunch of, I'm going to call them what they are. They're nitwits. They don't know anything about the subject. It's all emotion and aesthetics and, the way something looks temporarily. And the analogy I often use is, a timber harvest doesn't necessarily look good to the untrained eye. But to a forester, it's akin to the analogy I use is that if you took a child into a hospital, into an operating room where there's open heart surgery going on, and the only thing the child knew was that when you go to the hospital, they cut open your chest, and there's lots of blood, and it's gory, and it's terrible, without having the background of understanding that they're actually saving a life by conducting such an operation and doing such things, that's how they would react. And that's what goes on. You have people in the cities who don't know anything about managing lands or delivering water or any of the things that are necessary, and then they think it's great to just leave the forest alone until they get so choked up with undergrowth and 5 or 6 or 10 times as many trees per acre as God intended for there to be, and then they catch fire and they blame it on all of us for driving our cars, or our trucks. It's nonsense. They claim to be the party of science. They reject science at every turn. They reject modern management when it comes to these things. And like I say, you can go north to Canada. They don't have this problem because they harvest timber, they manage timber, the people benefit from the timber, and we all buy their lumber.
Absolutely well stated, Dan. Absolutely. I am just furious as to the lack of education or knowledge of adults and teenagers, etc., all across our country, because they're being told, and they're kind of drinking it in like Kool-Aid, oh yes, it's climate change. That's what's causing the fire. You take one piece of paper and lay it on the cement and start it on fire, and it's going to burn up and it's going to be gone. It's nothing but ashes. But if you take multiple pieces of paper, you're going to have yourself a pretty good fire. And the more trash, and in this case, all the fuel on the forest floors with the brush and the sticks and the twigs and the downed trees and everything, this son of a gun is going to burn for a long, long time. But the Democrats can't be smart enough to figure out they've got to have land management.
Well, yeah, Zeb, and again, it's sinful. It's a waste. It's almost, I mean, we know what happens. Foresters have told us for decades what would happen if they followed this plan that they followed. And, you know, every time a timber sale gets put up, the Greens, who are concerned about clean air and concerned about global warming, object to it. It gets caught up in the courts. Meanwhile, the trees die and become more fuel for the fires, and ultimately they end up with huge amounts of pollution in the air. The air on the West Coast right now is just awful, and it's gotten so bad, Zeb. It's gotten so bad. I was talking to someone yesterday that was telling me that their solar power production is cut by 1/3 because the air is so thick with the smoke from these fires. It's the worst. They've got worse air than Beijing.
Oh my!
That's how bad it is, and it's all avoidable. It was all predictable, and you know, at some point, you just throw up your hands and say, what do you do if little Johnny keeps trying to touch the hot stove?
Yeah.
And you keep telling him no? Eventually you let him touch the hot stove. I'm sorry, but that's the only way he's going to learn. You'd think they'd learn, but they draw all the wrong conclusions.
Absolutely.
Something else, because that gives them a hook to get their hooks into, you know, telling us what we can drive and how we heat our homes and the way we live our lives, because that's all about control. Because at the end of it, that's all they're all about. In some respects, big catastrophic fires and awful things happening are good, because then they can say, "Oh my word, you need to put us in charge, and we'll solve all these things." Well, if you believe that, I got a bridge for you.
There you go. You know, I was having a conversation with a businessman the other day, and he brought up some really good points, and we kind of shared our points of interest about solar and wind power with these great big turbines. And we got to talking about how some of the advertisements that are on TV and some of the things that Biden and Harris have said on behalf of the Democrats, with the absolute astonishing numbers of more turbines and more fields of solar panels. You and I touched on this a couple of weeks ago about the land acquisition that is going to be necessary to field all these items, and the cost and the locations, and whether they use eminent domain to take away private property. I mean, in order to replace what we have now with fossil fuels, Dan, you're the expert. It's going to take an enormous amount of money and land that I don't think is going to be available. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, Zeb. And your businessman friend was right. The thing about the sources of energy that we use now is that they're concentrated, and that's what you would typically look for in an energy source. Something that takes less land and produces more energy. That's why the Industrial Revolution happened. The British became the world's workshop. They became the biggest and most powerful country in the world with a very small population compared, for example, to China historically. And people didn't keep numbers for that. They didn't keep GDP numbers or anything like that, but just by the numbers. You know that if everything was done by hand, the more hands you have, the better it works. The British developed steam power and started cutting their forests, and they soon ran out of forests because wood doesn't have as much energy as the stuff that's in the ground, which is coal. And so they began to mine coal. And all of a sudden, they went from a little island nation into the world's most productive nation and the workshop for the world. And we followed up, bypassing them in the early 1900s with that. And China's trying to do that today. You use energy to amplify human strength, to make more things and do it more productively and ease human labor. And that is how it works. And if they're going to go back to these sources that rely on the wind and the rain and the sun shining and whatever weather passes by, that's the kind of energy we get for that day when it feels like it, then we're going to be less productive and we're going to be poorer. This stuff isn't rocket science. They make fun of President Trump for pointing out that they should clean their forests, but that's just common sense. And what we need is a lot less of these highfalutin, complicated explanations for everything, and a lot more common sense in this nation. That's the thing that they don't teach in schools anymore. That's parents' job, and they've taken that away from the parents.
Absolutely. That you hit the nail right on the head. I want to stick with the money aspect just a little bit further in the time remaining, because when you're talking money to buy the land or make acquisitions to the land for all these absolute stupid projects of millions and millions of acres, I think it would take for the solar farms and the wind turbines and everything. Where's the money going to come from except from the taxpayer's pocket?
Well, it's going to come from two places. It'll come from taxpayers, and it'll come from your energy bills. That's how the utilities, that's why these utilities like it. We've talked about Idaho Power before. We've talked about other utility companies. The reason they like this is because they get to make a guaranteed percentage return on anything that they invest, even if it's stupid and unnecessary. They don't really care. Their job is to lend money to themselves and let us pay the interest. That's how they operate. That's the game. We're on the receiving end, and the politicians are supposed to watch out for that, but the politicians are in cahoots on it.
Doesn't it strike you as rather odd and, quite frankly, cowardly that I have invited Idaho Power on my talk show many, many times to discuss their green energy ventures, and they have absolutely not returned my calls, and one individual said, never come on my program. I always feel like I treat you and every one of my guests fairly, but we get to the point. But Idaho Power is hiding under their desk, and they're cowardly because they don't want to answer poignant questions about green energy.
Yeah, Zeb, these utilities don't want to talk about it because basically they're in the driver's seat. They didn't think they were at first. At first they thought, this is stupid. This doesn't make sense from a energy perspective. And then the green groups, mostly based in Manhattan, went to them and said, here's a way for you to make even more money. And at first they said, well, yeah, but we're in the job of providing affordable energy. And they said, well, not if the priority is green energy. And the light went off in their heads, and they said, that's a great idea. And so they've all jumped on the bandwagon, and that's where they're headed. They're all headed in favor of more expensive forms of energy, things that they can buy and replace every 10 or 20 years instead of 50 or 60, the way they would a gas plant or a coal plant or a nuclear plant or something like that. And that's the game they're playing. And, you know, we've seen this before. We saw what happened in Germany, where they paid 3 times as much for electricity as we do. And these folks would like to get in on it, too.
Dan, what are your final thought here? I've got a minute left, but what are your thoughts in regards to what you hear in your part of the country? Are people energy savvy, or are they following along like lemmings over a cliff with the Democrats?
Oh, most people in the urban areas don't really understand energy. They may even make money off of energy, but they don't really understand how it works, and they think these things are created out of thin air. There's not a lot of common sense, as I said, Zeb. And that goes for the media as well, and so that's why we get the stories we get that don't tell even half the story. And I just, you know, I'm eternally optimistic about the fact that one of these days the light's going to go up in somebody's head, and it occasionally happens, and they say, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense at all. And then people will get the real story. So Americans always prevail. It's just that we typically try all the wrong things first.
That's very well said. I have a caller, but caller, I'm going to only give you 10 seconds, and I'm going to cut you off because I'm down to the last minute in the segment. Quickly, go.
Well, Idaho Power bragged about how they invested in natural gas, but then they turned around on the other hand, and they're going to close a potentially natural gas plant in Wyoming, and another one potentially in northern Nevada, and it makes absolutely no sense. I'll hang up.
Respond quickly, Dan, if you would.
Well, it may not make any sense, but it'll make them dollars because consumers of Idaho Power are going to pay for that plant even if they don't use it.
You got it.
That's the way the system is built. They make a profit by building something and then stopping its construction. That's how the system works.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're allowed to get away with that.
Dan, you are a dear friend of this program. Thank you again for a really good segment this morning. Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance, a true friend of this show. God bless you, man. See you next week.
Thanks, Zeb. God bless to you and yours.
Oh, thank you very much. I enjoy having him on the air, boy. He tells it like it is. Thank you, Dan Kish. Right now, holy smokes, I've got to tell it like it is, and I've got to tell you about Denny's Restaurant. Don't forget 611 North Overland in Burley, and another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, oh my goodness, desserts. Pick up the menu, and you're going to go, how am I going to make a choice out of all these delicious items? items. It's all there, with nice people serving you, too, at America's Diner. Deanne loves the strawberry crepes breakfast. You got to try that. Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, and it is true. It's not only the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, but it is America's Diner. Want to also urge you to get out of the valley and head for the hills, by golly, and get out of the maddening crowd. Get a four-wheeler or a side-by-side from Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and they're open Monday through Friday 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 2. You go into that showroom and you will find what you're looking for. I don't know how they got all those outfits crammed into that showroom, along with all the accessories, and to keep you running, they've got a super service department too. All of this at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and that's Let's Ride, where the fun is sold. Absolutely. I want to apologize. My throat is really raspy. I have never seen the smoke lingering and coming in the office window and everything. Got to have some fresh air, be that as it may. And it's really thick here this morning, so I apologize for that. Want to remind you, too, over in that Rupert area, we talk about our dear friends Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and so much more for you, your family, and your business. All you need to do is just give them a call, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424, and they are devoted to serving you. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Well, with all the smoke and everything else, let's clear the air a little bit as we talk to a political and economic analyst and founder and CEO of Valcor Worldwide. He's been on the show before, David Sussman. How are you, David?
I'm doing well, Zeb. Thanks for having me back.
Well, where are you right now, David?
I'm in Ventura County right now. I go between Vancouver and California.
Well, the reason I asked is I assumed that it was a California area code and everything, and how close are you to the fire zones that are really making the news?
Not that close. I got a little bit of pollution in the air, but not enough for me to stop hiking. So I'm in a good place. I'm near the ocean.
Well, we are getting not only a lot of the smoke from the Fresno area and surrounding rural area, but we're getting a little smoke from our own fire that's less than 8 miles or so right south of me. So anyway, stay safe down there in California.
You too.
I will, sir.
Absolutely. It's listen. It's a scary time. Trump came to California yesterday, and he sat with Gavin Newsom, who proceeded to lecture the president on climate change, and President Trump wasn't having any of it. He was talking about the forest policies, the Department of Forestry, and, there's a reality in California, Zeb, that I'm sure you've spoken a lot about on your show over the years, and that is you can go back 200 years, and the records show that approximately 4 million acres of forest burn every year due to lightning strikes and natural events. 4 million a year. This year, we're approximately going to be between 4 and 5 million acres of forest burning. This isn't anything to do with 1 or 2% difference in climate change. This has to do with 20 years of extremist environmental policies that have infiltrated Sacramento and turned California's and most of the western forests into tinderboxes. That needs to be addressed.
David Sussman, you have just received a free steak dinner from Zeb at the Ranch because, man, you said it all. And it's such a refreshing, on a day like this with all the smoke, breath of fresh air, to hear a Californian speak the truth. And I've said for a long time on my program that because of all the management or mismanagement in California and all the residue of all the fuels they've left on the ground, the dead trees, the underbrush, and everything else, Californians are actually contributing to this disaster.
Exactly true. And nobody wants to talk about that, especially the mainstream media. So I'm hoping that good folks like yourself, get this information out there and people can learn the real facts.
David, when you look at the overall jigsaw puzzle, I guess you could say, of politics that's going on right now, and you are a political analyst, how in the world, I'm an old man, I'm 72 years old. I have never seen an election process where one guy stays in the basement and lets the possible VP carry the ball, and then when he comes out, he says absurd things and stupid things, and he's being played like a puppet, but yet he's ahead in the polls, supposedly. This is insane.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's so many different areas that we could discuss on this issue because I'm really deeply concerned that we have a cognitive dissonance in America where you've got roughly half of the country right now that is just, I hate to use the term sheeple. The people have become sheep where they are in essence just accepting whatever information comes from Washington Post and the mainstream news networks without questioning it. There's something that's floating around right now that you probably saw yourself if you're on the Internet, and Kamala Harris stated yesterday,
yes,
she was talking about a Harris administration that will work with Biden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes.
And it was a slip, but she said it because she knows it. Because Joe Biden, I respect his service to the country. I respect his son's service to the country. I'm sure outside of politics, if you sat down with Joe Biden, he's probably a decent human being. He just has much different political philosophies and economic understanding of the world than I do. So I'm not one of those individuals that hate my opponent politically. However, he is non compos mentis. The man does not have his mental acuity. If he was our father or our brother, we would say to him, Joe, thank you for your service to the country. It's time to enjoy the lake, sit on the rocking chair, and we'll bring you your soup. There is no way this man could sit down with the governments around the world, including China, North Korea, Iran, deal with the Middle East peace process like Donald Trump is dealing with today, or focus on the economy, which is absolutely right now for small business going into a death spiral. And so he will not be running things. Kamala Harris, who is considered the most liberal senator in a Senate that is filled with people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, she will be running things along with the squad. That scares the bejeebies out of me.
Let me ask you this, David, and it's your turn now. You can laugh at me or you can agree with me. I've thought of a scenario that the Democrats may employ if they win the election. And the scenario would be that Joe Biden would take the oath of office. He would assume the office in January as President of the United States. But shortly thereafter, the Democratic Party will come forth with their own spokespeople, and they will say to the American public, you know what, Joe has slipped, and we want to have our party represented and the American people represented by a very staunch, strong government, so therefore we've asked Joe, and he's going to step into the background, and bingo, Kamala Harris.
I think the odds on that are probably close to not 100%.
What do you think of this election's integrity? I am really concerned, David, because of the mail-in balloting, of which I don't give any credence to whatsoever. I think that the integrity of the Democrats and their wanting to buy and or sleazily take over the election, they're capable of anything. What are your thoughts?
I think that's the biggest fear right now. I think that, and I've written about this and I've talked about this. I think that on election night, in 50 days from now, November the 3rd, it will look like Donald Trump is going to take the Electoral College, possibly in a landslide. I think he's going to do 390, possibly 400 electoral votes. You're going to see states like Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina. They're all going to go red. I truly believe that. However, listen, they've telegraphed exactly what their intention is. Hillary Clinton, I'm sure you've spoken about this.
Mm-hmm.
She said 2 weeks ago, under no uncertain terms, should Joe Biden concede. He should never concede. This is from a presidential candidate that she couldn't come out and concede that night. What is their plan, Zeb? Their plan is that, and we already know this. This isn't a conspiracy tinfoil hat theory. This is happening now on the ground. They have already hired over 600 lawyers. The number is going to go well above 1,000, and they are going to contest every single state. They are going to turn us into... listen, we're all old enough to remember 2020, Bush v. Gore. It's going to make Bush v. Gore look like tiddlywinks. And if the Republicans do not flip the House, then on Inauguration Day, until this is done, this will go to the Speaker of the House, who, at this time, is be Nancy Pelosi. This is their intention.
Everything you said is absolutely A1, perfectly laid out for my audience. But I'm going to throw one other fly in the milk. And the Biden campaign, if you want to call it that, has already even contacted Eric Holder from the Obama administration. I'm telling you, everything you said is so sinister and it's so true. I totally believe in what you said.
The wingman. They bring the wingman back, huh?
Yep. You know,
again, this whole thing, and they've got the media to carry their water, and they're trying to scare everybody to not go to the polls because they know that there are two groups in this country. There is a group of freedom-loving people that don't distrust government, but they are skeptical of the message. They try to think for themselves. And they take a look at the numbers where you've got essentially half of the people that have died from this thing were put into nursing homes in a few states. The other half, most of them are between the ages of 78 and 80, or they had underlying conditions that most healthy people, if they do get this thing, and many of us probably already got it and not even realized
That's
are
right.
not going to be impacted any more than having the sniffles.
That's
and
right.
Meanwhile, our economy has come to a crashing halt. Small businesses, 1/3. I spoke with Stephen Moore, economic advisor to President Donald Trump. He's on Trump's Economic Recovery Task Force. Stephen Moore told me that 1/3 of the 32 million small businesses in the United States will not come out of this. 1/3. So they are trying to keep this thing, in the headlines to scare people so they do not go to the polls, because Democrats are more likely to send in voter ballots. Republicans are more likely to actually go to their local poll and actually vote in person with a mask, just like you do when you go to the supermarket. So, we saw Joe Biden yesterday go to the Delaware primary. He actually came out of his basement. He actually voted in person, but he's telling you that you need to use the polls. So that is where they will be spending the 6 weeks after November the 3rd litigating this thing. They're going to be finding crates and boxes and tubs of mail-in votes that suddenly just appear, just as they did for the 7 congressional seats in California that were overturned after Republicans won them in November of 2018. 7 congressional seats were overturned. They plan on doing that across the country.
Let me ask you, David, with all of your insight on what's going on politically, I've got to ask you about crime in America. I am sickened by what I saw in L.A. with the young person walking up to the squad car and shooting the 2 police officers in the head. I'm sickened that our police are turning into targets. I'm sickened to hear in the background people laughing on videos that the cops were shot, and then having protesters out the hospital saying, let them die, let them die. What in the hell has happened to mankind and civilization in America?
Well, I've said this before. This is the margins, and the margins now have the bullhorn. Through social media and mainstream media, we're seeing the 10% on the extremes. Both sides have an extreme. And the 80% in the middle, I'm telling you, Zeb, that the reason that Donald Trump wins a legitimate landslide on Election Day is because the 80% majority in the middle, and you could have 40% right and 40% left of center, are not these crazy people. And they're looking at this and they're saying, listen, holy cow, Kamala Harris and the Democrats have been enabling these people for the past 4 months. I may not like Donald Trump personally, but these people are turning us into Lord of the Flies. And that is why you'll have independent voters, and you're seeing that in the polls right now, that are moving over to the Republican column. And I think that is why you have a massive red wave. If there is a way to control the shenanigans that the Democrats are going to be implementing with voter by mail, then Donald Trump wins. But again, going back to our previous point, that's what my biggest concern is right now.
But where's the validation, David? Let's explain this. Where's the validation on what's honest and what is dishonest in this election? How are you going to prove this? I just don't see a time frame to where you can have a validation. Am I wrong?
No. Here's the thing. Think about this, Zeb. I mean, and your educated listeners, I'm sure, have already thought this at the back of their mind. There are a few states around the country, Florida and a couple of others, that have the organizational structure in place for vote by mail because they've been doing it for years. But most states do not have that infrastructure. They have never done it before. Absentee ballots are different than vote by mail.
Yes.
Absentee ballots, you've got to register, you've got to sign your name, you've got to request it. Vote by mail, they are just sending just massive numbers of random. My mother got 4 vote by mail applications sent to her randomly. 4. So you take my elderly mother and you multiply that times 300 million people. You only need to see how 1, 2, 3% will take advantage of that, and that can make a huge difference in some of these very close congressional districts in battleground states. That is their plan. And so how do we know that it was done correctly or incorrectly? We won't. There will be books and documentaries written for centuries about this period that we're in right now, including the election that is up and coming because of the fraud that will be implemented by the Democrats.
Absolutely. I would be amiss if I didn't ask you one final thought, and it pertains to your state of California, more specifically in San Francisco. I about fell out of my boots when I heard that they're pushing for 16-year-olds to have the vote. My goodness. Why don't we make it, like I said earlier, 10-year-olds and they can vote on a candy wrapper?
I wrote about this, actually. It was an article that went up on Ricochet.com about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more, maybe 5 years ago. So San Francisco, there's a couple of districts in Maryland as well, have implemented these votes for non-national but local elections allowing 16-year-olds to vote. This has been their game plan for decades. Listen, I've got children. They're not really young kids anymore. I've got a 20-year-old in college and a 15-year-old in high school. In no uncertain terms should children be voting. I think, listen, I'm a naturalized citizen. I grew up and was raised in London, England. I came here as a kid, and I became naturalized. I had to take a test. I think that you need to be at least 21, possibly 25. You should take a test to vote. Unless you are in the military. If you have served your country, then you should, at 18, you should be allowed to vote. Because you do not have the life experience or the wherewithal to know what the heck you're voting for. Unless you've ever worked for a living, paid taxes, run a business and made payroll, you should be nowhere close to balloting. That Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco, who's pushed for this, knows that they can emotionally manipulate kids with these issues like gun control and other racist issues that they're using for emotional cudgels, and that is how they're going to win elections.
You know, you've got to promise to come back, David. You're a breath of fresh air in a very smoky morning, and I appreciate it. David Sussman, God bless you, man. Stay safe down in California, and I hope you'll consent to coming back on the show.
Anytime. Thank you, good sir.
Thank you. Have a great day. I like that guy. He tells it like it is. Political and economic analyst with his company, Valcor Worldwide, David Sussman, and he will be back. I can guarantee you that. I won't be if I don't get the weather forecast on here. Man, that smoke is just really, really heavy here. My goodness, be careful out there, folks. If you don't have to breathe that stuff, please stay inside. Our weather forecast is being brought to you by Phillips Oakes, Goodwin, Crane and Company, providing accounting services to the Mini-Cache area for well over 50 years. They are the professionals. The best of tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, financial statement preparation, retirement planning, all of this and so much more. They are really knowledgeable and can help you, your family, and your business. With offices in Burley and Rupert, the professionals, Phillips Oakes, Goodwin, Crane and Company. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
The air quality advisory is going to be in effect for the rest of the week due to all of the wildfires burning in our area. So if you have upper respiratory issues, you really do want to limit your time outside. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting, again, smoke in the area with a high of about 88. Tonight, still going to be hazy with a low 47. By tomorrow, sunny skies, still smoky, high of about 90 with an overnight low of 51. Pretty much the same for Thursday. Friday, we do have a very slight chance of afternoon showers, partly sunny skies, high of 81. Then rain showers and thunderstorms for Friday night with a low of 47. That's look at your weather for 7.
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. And again, this hour's weather brought to you by Phillips Oakes, Goodwin, Crane and Company. And believe me, we've been with them, I think, about 6 or 7 years right now. They are great in serving you, your family, and your business with the best of accounting services. Phillips Oakes, Goodwin, Crane and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Yep, they are the professionals. You know, this is so nuts that the blue state Democrats of mayors and city leaders, etc., Bill de Blasio. I mean, have you really followed some of the news about Bill de Blasio and what an idiot? He is an idiot in the way he's trying to mismanage New York. I have never seen anything like it. Now, the nation's by far dumbest mayor is coming out. I don't know if you caught this yesterday or not, but he came out and said, well, we are going to reinvent. Here's the key word. We are going to reinvent the Macy's Thanksgiving Day celebration parade. Now, sources that I've talked to said he's probably going to try to cancel the parade. And he's going to blame it on the coronavirus and people mingling in a parade route and everything else. It's okay to burn and loot and have riots with 1,000 or 5,000 people, but no, you can't have a parade on Thanksgiving. And many have said they're going to change, minimize, or even delete this Thanksgiving Day holiday. See, this is what gripes me. We've got so much in this country to be thankful for, but these elitists, these knotheads that want to take our Constitution and our country and throw it into a garbage heap, they start one bite at a time. One bite at a time. Oh, well, we'll take away Thanksgiving. Oh, well, we'll take away Christmas shopping. There'll be too many people in the stores and everything, so we'll stop that. Watch out, folks. Watch out. The left is gaining steam, and we need to step on them like a bug. Don't forget our friends at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, with my friends Curtis and Lorena. I wished I had a tenth of their knowledge when it comes to all the electronic items. Oh, I mean, they rattle off chapter and verse about how this works, that works, what you should do here and everything, and I just nod my head and go, Well, they know everything about all the home theater systems, video surveillance cameras, all the car stereos, stereo speakers, complete sound systems. Oh, I mean, they've got it all. And for those of us that want to rest a little bit at night in the lazy boy and watch TV, they've got the best of Samsung, Sony, Toshiba, LG TVs. Great selection. All I'm going to tell you is they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6, and they will help you. Nice people, Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. And the number to call, 678-6997. I wanted to add a little personal note here this morning and tell you and my audience that we are certainly hoping and praying that in the next couple of days and or leading up to the next couple of weeks left in this month of September, that I can get on the air some morning before the end of the month and say that we're going to have another lunch bunch. Now listen carefully to what I'm saying. I'm not saying we are, but I'm saying we are certainly hoping. And if Deanne's health keeps continually getting better, I am going to certainly try to put together a lunch bunch for this month of September. I've had a lot of calls, and we certainly would love to get a gathering back at Denny's restaurant for another lunch bunch. I'm telling you, folks, we're pulling for it. Call her quickly. I got a minute left.
Hello?
Yes, quickly. You're on the air. I got a minute.
Oh, okay. You know, this Bloomberg has pledged to give the Biden campaign $100 million. How can he do that legally?
Well, wait a minute. Are you talking about Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City? I was talking about de Blasio a minute ago. Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah. He's got the money, he's got the resources, he's got the ability, and he's got the ways and means that it can be done in a legal, quote-unquote, fashion.
It's disgusting to think that one person can control so much.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot more of the buying of elections. Keith, what David Sussman said a few minutes ago is so true, and we both agreed on it, that the validity of this election is going to be very much in question for a long, long time. I've got to run to the news, Keith, but I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you so much. Always appreciate it. Thank you.
Don't forget my ballot.
Okay. Thanks, Keith. We're going to take a little break for about 7 minutes, and coming up after the break, of course, our dear, dear friend, Dr. History, should be coming through the door at any moment, and then he'll be up in the next half hour. God bless. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. Oh, here we go. Hour number 3 on a Tuesday, September 15th. Zeb at the Ranch, and of course brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you in a very safe, clean environment, and of course, always the best in tires. And our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. We're going to go to Dr. History in just a moment. I want to remind you about Greystone Crossing Senior Living. Seniors, listen to me, please. If you're looking for a great place to move into with all the amenities of a beautiful 12-bedroom home and 3 meals a day, snacks, housekeeping, and local transportation, all included in the rent, you better call Matt or Kelly Wiggins at 650-4979. That number again, 650-4979. And they'll set an appointment up with you to see the beautiful Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. And another quick note, I'm into silver purchases, and I want to thank the folks at 7K Metals for helping me learn much more about it. And that's, of course, Lon Hardy and Sharon. You can help yourself build your own financial security and future and create your own security bank, and it will be a valued treasure for your loved ones in the future. Don't forget, find out more about 7K Metals and silver purchases. Contact Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259. They'll give you all the information of 7K K Metals. Right now, here he is. He's already got the microphone turned up. I can hear the motor running, and he's revved up and ready to go. Good morning,
Good
Dr.
morning,
History.
Zeb.
How are you?
Great. I see they're chopping corn now.
Yeah. Boy, you know what? That field over across the highway from me, that's one of the best field of corn I've ever seen.
It looks great.
Oh, my.
It's really good.
Hey, have you got any thank yous this morning?
I do.
Before?
I want to say hi to my cousin, Dave Hess, over in California. He travels in California and listens to the show. And then also Tony in Ireland.
What, in Ireland?
In Ireland, yeah.
Let's see. Here it is 10:08, so that means that Tony's in a pub over in Ireland having a little Irish ale.
He could be.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, and I want to say hi to Wayne, who contacted me. Anyway, there's something we're going on there. I'll tell you about it later. Kind of an exciting thing about history.
Oh, okay.
But today,
I've got my interest piqued.
All right. Today, we're going to talk about a steamboat called the Sultana. Does that ring a bell at all?
No.
Okay. Well,
you always act like, oh, good, he doesn't know about this.
Now I can get you, right?
Yeah, you're going to get
me. So the Sultana was a Mississippi River side-wheel steamboat. It exploded on April 27th, 1865, in the worst maritime disaster in United States history.
Really?
The worst.
On the Mississippi?
Yeah. Now, it was constructed of wood in 1863 in Cincinnati. It was intended for the lower Mississippi cotton trade. The steamer registered 1,719 tons and normally carried a crew of 85. And for 2 years, she ran a regular route between St. Louis and New Orleans and was frequently commissioned to carry troops.
So this wasn't really a riverboat with the gambling and everything?
No. No, it was kind of a commercial adventure. Now, it was designed with a capacity of only 376 passengers, and she was carrying 2,137 when 3 of the boat's 4 boilers exploded, and she burned to the waterline and sank near Memphis, Tennessee. The disaster was kind of overshadowed at the time in the press because of the end of the Civil War and also the killing of President Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth, just the day before. Yeah. So it was, and no one is ever actually held accountable for this tragedy.
So it was man-caused?
Sort of. You'll kind of get that hint as we go along here. It was launched on the 3rd of January, 1863. It was built for speed and capacity, 260 feet long.
260 feet?
That's almost as long as a football field. 39 feet wide, 2 big, huge side-mounted paddle wheels were driven by 4 boilers. So I didn't realize that you had more than one boiler on these.
That's a big boat.
Yeah. Now, it was under the command of Captain James Mason of St. Louis. So keep that guy in mind. He's going to come into play quite a bit, Captain Mason.
Right.
So Sultana left St. Louis on April 13th, 1865, bound for New Orleans. When word reached the city that President Lincoln had been shot, immediately Captain Mason grabbed an armload of Cairo newspapers and headed south to spread the news. Now, upon reaching Vicksburg, Mississippi, Mason was approached by Captain Reuben Hatch. Now, Hatch had a deal for Mason. He said, "We got thousands of recently released Union prisoners of war that have been held by the Confederacy in these various really bad prisons and had been brought to a small camp outside of Vicksburg. The U.S. government would pay $2.75 per enlisted man and $8 per officer to any steamboat captain who would take a group north." You see what's coming, don't you, Zeb?
Mm-hmm.
Now, knowing that Captain Mason was in need of money, this Hatch guy suggested that he could guarantee Mason a full load of about 1,400 prisoners if Mason would agree to give him a kickback. Well, hoping to gain a lot of money on this deal, Mason quickly agreed to the offered bribe. He left Vicksburg. Sultana traveled down river to New Orleans. So here we are, April 21st.
So they were headed south.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So April 21st, 1865, Sultana left New Orleans. One of Sultana's 4 boilers sprang a leak.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The steamboat limped into Vicksburg to get the boiler repaired and to pick up the promised load of prisoners.
Can we see what that caller wants?
Sure.
If it's not relating, we'll hang up and get back to you.
Okay.
Caller, real fast. They hung up. All right, good.
Okay. So while the parole prisoners were getting ready, they took the Sultana to a mechanic who was brought down to work. Now, remember, a leaky boiler, all right? That's kind of a hint right there.
There you go.
So Captain Mason and his chief engineer, a guy named Nathan, convinced the mechanic to make just kind of a temporary repair. So instead of taking 2 or 3 days, the temporary repair only took 1 day. And while the repairs were being made, Sultana took on all of these paroled prisoners.
So there was 1,400 of them.
Yeah. So Hatch had suggested that Mason might get as many as 1,400 released Union prisoners. The Union officer in charge of the loading placed every man on the parole camp that was at this camp. So it added up to about 1,500 on this that was only supposed to hold like 300 or 400.
Yeah.
So the Sultana had a legal capacity of only 376, and by the time she backed away from Vicksburg on the night of April 24th, 1865, she was severely overcrowded, now with 1,960 paroled prisoners, 22 guards from the 58th Ohio Volunteer Infantry, 70 paying passengers, and 85 crew members. Now we're up to 2,137 people.
On a 260 foot
on a
steamer.
That's supposed to only have 376.
Wow.
So a lot of these parole prisoners have been weakened by their imprisonment in the prison camps and illnesses, but they'd managed to gain enough strength while waiting at the camp to be able to at least walk to get on the boat.
Board, yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to head home, obviously. Well, the men were packed into every available space, and the overflow was so severe that in some places the decks began to creak and sag and had to be supported with heavy wooden beams. Now remember, this is like a 3-layer.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, so they had to actually put wooden beams under some of it to hold the weight from above. So
how did it stay afloat?
Well, they could do this. You could put a lot of weight on those, but I mean, this was going above and beyond.
Yeah.
So April 26th, Sultana stopped at Helena, Arkansas, and near 7 o'clock that night, Sultana reached Memphis. The crew began unloading 120 tons of sugar. So it carried a lot of weight, Zeb.
Plus
all these people. Yeah. And then they went a short distance upriver to take on a new load of coal. So they were really capable of carrying a lot of stuff, a lot of weight. So here we are. It's nearly 2 o'clock in the morning on April 27th, 1865. So April is still kind of cold, all right? When the Sultana was just 7 miles north of Memphis, its boilers suddenly exploded. First one boiler exploded, followed a split second later by 2 more. This enormous explosion of steam came from the top rear of the boilers and went upward at a 45-degree angle, tearing through the crowded decks above and completely demolishing the pilot house. So now they don't have a pilot to steer the boat. The Sultana began drifting and burning just uncontrolled.
Was Mason not on duty?
Yeah. No, we'll get to him.
Oh, okay.
Now, this terrific explosion flung some of the deck passengers into the water and destroyed a large section of the boat. The twin smokestacks toppled over. The right hand one went backwards into the hole where the boilers had been. The left hand one went forward and fell onto the crowded section of the deck.
How many were killed?
Well, we'll get to that too.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The forward part of the, it killed a bunch of people, trapped them in the wreckage, and fortunately the sturdy railings around the twin openings of the stairway prevented the upper deck from crushing down completely into the middle deck. So, anyway, it was bad. So those men sleeping around the twin openings quickly crawled under the wreckage and down the main stairs, and further back, the collapsing decks formed a slope that led down into this exposed furnace box, which was a cauldron of burning wreck. But so the remaining superstructure was an inferno. Survivors of the explosion panicked and raced for the safety of the water, but in their weakened condition, they soon ran out of strength and began to cling on to each other, and whole groups went down together.
Oh, my.
I mean, it's just, a lot of people didn't know how to swim back then, Zeb. And so with all these people in the water, they would just hang on to each other and just, I hate to say it, but they would just go down.
Yeah.
Well, while this fight for survival was taking place, the southbound steamer called the Bostana, built in 1860 but coming downriver on her maiden voyage after being refurbished, arrived at about 2:30 a.m., so about a half an hour later. Half hour after the explosion.
How far from shore were they?
Well, there's parts of the river that are a mile, 2 miles, even 3 miles wide.
Yeah, the Mississippi is a very changing river.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I've been on it quite a bit.
Yeah. So they came upon the site and started to rescue some of the survivors. And at the same time, dozens of people began to float past the Memphis waterfront. So they were several miles up from Memphis. And as they were doing this, some of the docked steamboats and the U.S. warships immediately set about rescuing these half-drowned victims that were floating down the river. Now, eventually, the hulk of the Santana drifted about 6 miles to the west bank of the river and sank at about 9 o'clock that next morning near a place called Mound City, which is present-day Marion, Arkansas, which is about 7 hours after the explosion. Now, other vessels joined the rescue, including the steamers the Silver Spray, the Jenny Lind, and Pocahontas, the Navy ironclad, the Essex, and the sidewheel gunboat, the USS Tyler. And passengers who survived the initial explosion had to risk their lives in this icy, cold spring runoff of the Mississippi or burn on the boat. So what do? Do you stay on the boat or do you jump in? And unfortunately, a lot of them died of drowning or hypothermia. Yeah, you just can't be in that water that long.
No.
So some survivors were plucked from the tops of semi-submerged trees along the Arkansas shore. Bodies of victims continued to be found downriver for months, some as far as Vicksburg.
Oh, my.
A lot of bodies were never recovered. You can imagine with an explosion like that. And most of Sultana's officers, including Captain Mason, were among those who perished.
Really?
So, if he was in the pilot house, and as I said earlier, it just exploded right underneath the pilot house. So anybody in there probably was just instantly killed.
Yeah.
So the exact death toll is unknown, although the most recent evidence indicates 1,168 that died.
Wow.
On May 19th, 1865, less than a month after the disaster, Brigadier General William Hoffman, Commissary General of the prisoners who investigated the disaster, reported an overall loss of soldiers, passengers, and crew of 1,238. And in February 1867, the Bureau of Military Justice placed the death toll at 1,100. So you're, between 1,100 and 1,250 people died.
Wow.
And in 1880, the 51st Congress reported the loss aboard the Sultana as 1,259, but then again they came back and said as many as 1,547. So
didn't they have any? What am I trying to say?
Like a
manifest or something? Yeah.
No, and if they did, it would have been destroyed in the fire. So
they didn't keep anything on shore at the leaving, or
well, whatever they did have, that's what they finally came up with.
I see.
Was 1,547. So, but in 1880, the War Department placed the number of survivors at 931. But the dead soldiers were buried at the Fort Pickering Cemetery, located on the south shore of Memphis. So let's look at the cause. Okay, the official cause of the Sultana disaster was determined to be mismanagement of water levels in the boilers, and this was made worse by the fact that the vessel was severely overcrowded and top-heavy. Remember, they just kept piling them on higher and higher. So as the steamboat made her way north, following the twists and turns of the river, this boat would list severely from one side to the other. It would tip. Now, this was a problem because her 4 boilers were interconnected and they were mounted side by side so that if the boat tipped sideways, water would tend to run out of the highest boiler with the fire still going against the empty boiler. So this increased the hot spots in the empty boiler because they're still getting fed, the coal or wood.
Yeah.
So, well, when the boat tipped the other way, the water rushed back into the empty boiler, would hit the hot spots, and flash instantly to steam, which would create a sudden surge of pressure. So this effect of tipping back and forth could have been minimized by maintaining the water level in the boiler. So they didn't have enough water to keep the boilers completely full. Okay, so the official inquiry found that the boat's boilers exploded due to the combined efforts of the tipping left and right, the low water level, and the faulty repair, remember I mentioned earlier, to the leaky boiler a few days earlier. So,
can I ask you an obviously dumb question?
Okay.
When did they start welding?
I have no idea. I don't know how,
I'm just curious on these boilers and that.
Right, how would they repair?
Anybody out there that knows welding and knows the answer as to when welding per se started, let us know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know how they would have repaired that boiler. But the most recent investigation determined that there were three main factors that led to the explosion, which, number one, the type of metal used in the construction of the boilers. Okay, so it may not have been the best metal that they used to make these boilers. Number two, the use of dirty Mississippi River water to feed the boilers.
Yeah, it would have debris in it and everything else.
And mud.
Yeah.
That could clog some of the pipes in between. And number three, they said, was the design of the boilers. Somehow because of the way they were designed side by side and interconnected. So those are kind of the three.
It makes you kind of think, here we are in 2020. And this happened in 1865.
Mm-hmm.
All those years, and here we're talking about technology, technocracy, and, I'd like to know more about welding and how these boilers were constructed and everything. The Americans were pretty filled with ingenuity on how to build things.
Exactly. And these riverboats could float in sometimes as little as like 4 or 5 feet of water.
Really?
So
big flat bottom.
Yeah.
Huh?
But the master, the captain of the Sultana, Captain Mason, who was ultimately responsible for dangerously overloading his ship and ordering the faulty repairs to her leaky boiler. Of course, I told you he died in the explosion, and in the end, no one was ever held accountable for the greatest maritime disaster in United States history. Now, in 1982, a local archaeological expedition, they were searching. And the Mississippi River has changed course several times, like we mentioned, since the disaster, and it leaves the wreck under dry land and far from today's river, about 2 miles from the actual river where
so
it runs today.
So they found parts of it?
Yeah. But Zeb, there were so many boats, I can't remember the exact number, that exploded. This was not an uncommon thing to explode. In fact, Mark Twain, who, of course, was on different boats, his brother was on a ship, on a steamer that exploded and actually died a few days later. Mark Twain went to see his brother and was with him when he finally died.
No kidding.
From the explosion. But yeah, there was a documentary on this Sultana on a documentary on that I watched on Apple TV on one of the. That's what made me interested in doing a show about this. But they indicated that there was a lot of explosions that took place time and time again.
Have you been on the Mississippi?
I've driven over it. I've never been on it.
It's a weird river. I mean, you can go from the Narrows to the, like you said, a mile, mile and a quarter, mile and a half, whatever it might be, and the depths of the river are changing. Well, I mean, I know spots of the Mississippi up around Iowa and Wisconsin and up in through there. You can walk across.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to remember snags. Trees that come out during the high water and they get embedded in the dirt in the bottom, and some of these would snag onto a tree and sink.
Yeah. You know, how did they navigate? Dumb question, okay? How did you navigate with a flat-bottom boat as opposed to... You're smiling at me.
Because I have no idea.
You're supposed to be a naval expert.
Okay, so just in my thinking, I'm thinking, could they slow down the paddle on the left side and increase the speed on the right to turn?
I don't know. That's a good theory.
Or were there I don't know, how would they
I'm looking at a flat-bottom boat that's 260 feet long.
Yeah.
And how wide was it?
What did I say, 90?
90 feet wide.
Yeah.
So that's like home plate to first base wide. And
actually, only 39 feet wide at the base.
Okay.
42 feet wide up on the first deck.
But you've got a flat bottom, which isn't going to, it's going to be bluntly hitting the waves and everything. It's going to be that much harder to steer, isn't it?
Well, and then you throw in some wind.
And a lot of weight.
Yeah, and like I say, if you get some wind blowing that big of a boat...
You know what we need? We need a Navy man to explain this to us.
We do, but I don't know any that actually served on a steamboat.
Okay, well, if they're old like you, they should.
That's right.
I got to run.
I know.
That was an interesting story. Let's find out some more about that.
I would like to know more, yeah.
Okay. Doctor History, great job. Now you're going to share something with me off the air, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. While I quickly will tell everybody about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. Oh, you need a good night's sleep. Boy, I could love a great night's sleep. They've got the Simmons Beauty Rest mattresses. Oh, if you got sleep problems, they've got the answer. And they've got all your bedroom sets. They've got all your kitchen dinette sets. They've got it all. Largest selection of furniture. I mean, chairs and recliners. You name it, it's all there. And the professional people there that can help you. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. You stop in and see Jeff and the crew today. Right now, we're going to send it over to our main studio. I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to our last half hour. It wasn't that many days ago that I had this wonderful doctor on our program, and I learned so much in her very decisive way of explaining the coronavirus and what's being done or not being done. And she is the coordinator of National Healthcare Coalition, Dr. Carla Dean Graves. Good. Still trying to get her? Okay, good. Keep trying if you would, please. And hopefully we can get her back on the air this morning. She was scheduled to be on at 10:30, and hopefully everything will be all right. Calls are welcome in that interim of time, and appreciated at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. So give me a call if you would, please. Let me see. What else have I got on national or local news, as I almost choked to death? Let me see. Biden preparing for a loss. Now, you heard David Sussman talk about this a little bit earlier this morning. Biden's campaign managers and staff have supposedly hired former Attorney General Eric Holder to, quote unquote, preserve the integrity of the election, along with a host, literally a host of thousands that are going to be working with the Biden campaign to almost ensure a victory for the Democrats. And they're building what they call a huge legal operation to fight the election. It almost sounds, in my mind, that the Democrats have conceded the election is going to be a loss to Donald Trump, but they're going to go after the election winner, Donald Trump, and they're going to fight. They're going to delay. They're going to stall and hopefully steal the election back to the Democrats. And you wouldn't put together a team like this, I don't think, if you weren't planning for the worst and then hoping for the best. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Sean, any success at all?
ringing.
Oh, dear. And that's the only number I have. I hope I gave you the right number. Would you mind repeating that to me? I might have slipped.
It is the right number. It's the same number I called last time.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, Sean. So it looks like we're having a little trouble trying to get our doctor on the air. And if you would, please give me a jingle at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I would like to go back to this L.A. shooting of those policemen. How many of you, and I'm sure many of you have, depending on the news agency that distributed the video, how many of you have seen that video of that person? And to me, when you look at the person that's the shooter, walk up casually to the side of that squad car, I'm honestly convinced by looking at the video that it was a very young person. I said this in the first hour, and I'm going to stick to my guns on this. A very young person, a young, if you would, teenager, and not very tall in stature, wearing the kind of the hip-hop clothes of the shorts that are way too big and too baggy, and the jacket, etc. The way that he walked up to the squad car, and evidently the police thought there was no harm here, no danger, and then all of a sudden this guy or this kid or whomever pulls out that gun and very, very coldly takes aim and shoots both officers in the head and then runs away. And right there, when you see the running away on the video, it tells me it's a younger person, probably in the early teens. I'd like some of your thoughts on this. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Waiting to see if we can get Dr. Carla Dean Graves on our program, and if not, we will pursue that another day. She was excellent in answering a lot of our questions regarding the COVID-19 and also the vaccine and everything else. So I hope we can get her back on. If not today, we'll shoot for another day in the not-too-distant future. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Anything that you want to talk about? I'm kind of stuttering and stammering here this morning because I was given a lead pipe cinch that she would be on the program with us this morning, so hopefully we can get this changed. Number two, I wanted to mention also that we are hopefully going to get back to Lunch Bunch. I mentioned that last hour. We had some calls during the news break, and people are saying, are you going to have Lunch Bunch this year or this month? And I'm going to say this. We are trying to get everything in order to maybe where we could look at Lunch Bunch the 24th. If everything goes well for Deanne, we're going to have to wait and see. Sean, no answer at that number?
No, it's still just ringing, and it goes to messaging.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Editorial in the paper this morning about Jim Risch seeking re-election, and they were talking. Chuck Malloy, longtime Idaho journalist, wrote an op-ed and said, talking about Senator Risch, his race against Democratic challenger, former state representative Paulette Jordan, and some of the points that were made in there I'll take issue with, and I'll tell you what they are in just a few minutes. Caller, good morning, and thank you for your call. Believe me, you are what's called a life preserver.
Okay, got a question for you. What came, this is about global warming, what came before the Ice Age?
What came?
What I'm thinking is that global warming is a normal cyclical thing that you're never going to change. So I think all these animals we had that died off or came up through the warm age, I guess you would call it. Then we had the Ice Age.
Right.
What came after the Ice Age was warming. This thing goes on and on and on. There's no changing it.
Yeah, it's a cyclical. You said the word cyclical. pattern of weather changes, and some of the scientists that have been on our program, and I'm talking about many that have written books, and one in particular, I'm looking on my shelf right now, and trying to find that one book, but and the author of it, but they've come out and basically pinpointed that we are headed back into perhaps another ice age in certain latitudes and longitudes in our geography. And a guy that goes to our lunch bunch, Tony, said it best a couple of years ago that God is in control of the thermostat, not mankind. And I totally agree with that. I think anybody that thinks man can control the atmosphere and man can control the climate, you've got to be an idiot to think that.
Well, all people have to do is go back to the prehistoric ages, do a little thing on natural history and all global stuff, and you find out that it is cyclical. Nothing we can do about it.
Tony, let me ask you a question. And you're what, about 89 right now?
I'm pushing 91.
Oh, my goodness, and you'd never know it. You're sharp as a tack, and I'll tell you, I really appreciate you. But what is wrong? Let me ask you this for an opinion. What is wrong with living in a warmer climate? I don't see anything wrong with it, and I'll tell you why. There is less sickness, there is less death, there's more crops, there's more growing. So why is everybody so afraid of a global warming?
Well, I think what they figure is the temperature will be 90 degrees, and before you know it, it'll be up to 200 degrees. And the people are fearful about what's going on.
I just
fear of nature.
Yeah, I just
go back to your natural days, historical days, 100,000 years ago, whatever it was, and you'll see nobody's been burned to death. Nobody's been frozen to death that has got half a brain.
I cannot.
I don't like hot weather because I spent quite a bit of time in the service in hot climate.
I know you did.
But I would live it. I can enjoy it. I got air conditioning. I get up early in the morning, do your business.
Think about living in, well, let's just use an example, Russia. In the cold, the bitter cold, without being able to afford heat, without being able to hardly leave the premises, and the death and the destruction and the total chaos that cold weather brings rather than warm weather.
Well, I came from Guam in the Philippines in 1954 when the temperatures was really hot. And I ended up in Great Falls, Montana, and it was like 45 degrees below zero. And you talk about a change.
I can't even imagine. I have never liked cold weather. I'm not a fan of putting jackets on and mucklucks and gloves and stocking caps and everything else. And I sometimes sit back and question, these people are saying, oh, the earth, it warmed up a whole degree. And I'm sitting here going, what difference does it make? Really, it's better to live in a warmer clime, if you will, than it is to freeze to death.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Look at your crop production and everything else. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this is about China. China has let the world know that they can take the world over without firing a shot using germ warfare.
I can't argue with that, but I'm very fearful even to say it. I have said from the get-go, and you've been a faithful listener on this program, that I don't think the Chinese coronavirus or the Wuhan flu virus, whatever, was an oops. I think it may have been a planned approach for China, who has no regard for human life or human stability. I think it was something that was done to be a test case as to how much they could accomplish.
install fear in the rest of us.
I totally agree. Tony, it's always good to hear from you, and thank you for padding some of the time. My guest wasn't there, but Tony was. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
God bless you, man. Thanks a lot. I've got time for a couple more calls. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd still like to hear from some more, especially some of the parents, that when the kids went back to school this fall, they went, whoo, okay, a little rest. What do you think about that voting at 16 years of age that they're trying to push in San Francisco? Give me a call on that. While I'm waiting for your call, tell you what, I'll do the weather forecast real quick so I don't get backed into a corner. And the weather is brought to you by Scarro's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Oh, you can go to their website and check out all the delicious meats at scarrosmeats.com. Or give them a call, 324-7657. I mean, we're talking about all the hams, and we're talking about all the marinated pork ribs. We're talking about all the different flavors of bacon and bratwurst. I love bratwurst. And the sausage, you name it, it's all there at Scarro's Meats in Jerome. That number again, 324-7657. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
The air quality advisory is going to be in effect for the rest of the week due to all of the wildfires burning in our area. So if you have upper respiratory issues, you really do want to limit your time outside. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting, again, smoke in the area with a high of about 88. Tonight, still going to be hazy with a low 47. By tomorrow, sunny skies, still smoky, high of about 90 with an overnight low of 51. Pretty much the same for Thursday. Friday, we do have a very slight chance of afternoon showers, partly sunny skies, high of 81. Then rain showers and thunderstorms for Friday night with a low of 47. That's a look at your weather for 7 to 8.
I appreciate the job she does. Gina, thank you for the weather this morning, and brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of his great outfit, located at 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. And they are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. All right, give me a jingle on the landline, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Tomorrow, quickly on the program, I hope we have everybody show up. Didn't work so good today in the last half hour. I was really looking forward to having Dr. Carla Dean Graves on the show and answering a lot more of the questions about the coronavirus. But again, I will check with her office and see if we can't get it rescheduled. Tomorrow, we are expecting to have Dave Bigo on the air and a gentleman by the name of Omar Navarro. And this is kind of an interesting little story, and I'm sure he's going to give us a lot of insight about Nancy Pelosi and others in California, because he is a candidate for California governor running against and trying to defeat Gavin Newsom. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be really interesting. And he also, in his past political life, ran against Maxine Waters. Woo! The stories he can tell. That's going to be on tomorrow morning at about 9:30. And then we'll have our monthly meeting, as it is, with the Idaho Fish and Game from 10:06 to about 11 o'clock on Zev at the Ranch. All right, your turn. Bail me out of a wreck and give me a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. Let me know what your thoughts are. And the smoke is dangerous. I can tell you that. For those that have a heart condition, those that have asthma, etc., if you don't have to be outside today, don't be, because the inhalation of all this smoke is not good for you. I'm going to ask Sean. Sean, do you have any reports about that fire? It's called the Badger Fire. I know exactly where it is, straight south of where I'm sitting right now. Do you have any more reports as to whether or not the fire is under control or what's happening?
I have no idea, but I could go find out real quick.
Why don't you, is Gina available, or is she on the air at this time?
Let me go find out.
All right. He's going to check with Gina, and maybe we can get an update on that fire, because they said the air quality for the rest of this week is expected to stay unhealthy for very sensitive groups of people, and not good. Don't be outside if you don't have to be outside. And this fire is near Badger Gulch, south of Bostetter Guard Station. And for those of you that go up in the South Hills as much as I do, you know exactly where that fire is. Let's see if Sean's got Gina available to give us an update on that. Is anybody over there, or am I just talking to me? No, I guess I'm just talking to me. So, you know, the loneliest part of being a talk show host, and when it's live, and it's not Memorex or on tape, and your guest does a 180 and doesn't show up, and you're planning on having that segment filled, and then your engineer leaves the room, and you're talking to yourself, looking at the TV. No, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. And then you look at the cameras, and you're sitting in your studio all by yourself, and this is not fun. Is she there?
Yes, I'm looking up information.
You are a sweetheart. By the way, I want to thank you publicly on the radio for filling in for me last week. Thank you very much. Problem. Thank you.
That is not a problem here. Badger fire.
Yes.
Let's see here. It's now grown to about 23,500 acres.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's 0% contained at this moment in time, and this is a news feed as of about 24 minutes ago.
Gina, what's the direction of the fire's encroachment? I mean, what direction are we talking about? Northwest or?
Let me look at the weather.
Okay, good.
And I can tell you. Because that is a very good question, and that is going to kind of dictate the direction of the fire. So today, we are expecting wind direction. Let's see here if my phone wants to work with me.
I really appreciate you coming in and doing this. Because hunting season...
Okay, so winds are out of the east-northeast at this point in time.
Ooh, not good. Not good.
Yeah, and
not good.
So of course we're in a yellow to orange air quality alert. That basically means if you've got any upper respiratory issues, you asthma, COPD, things like that, really limit yourself outside and make sure that if you do go outside, you have your inhalers with you.
Right.
That's
right.
Really, really very important. As far as the fire is concerned, they are hoping for containment. Let me get back to that story. But they are hoping for containment at least, hopefully by the end of the week. Let's see here. There is a helicopter, 4 engines, 2 crews, 2 dozers, with 94 total people fighting the fire as of this morning.
And you said it's headed in a westerly direction?
No, it's east-northeast. That's the direction that it's going to be headed.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was excellent. At spur of the moment, I knew I could depend on you and Sean. Thank you very much.
You betcha.
God bless. Thanks. Want to give a great big shout out and thank you. Pardon me, the smoke's coming in here pretty good. To our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with a very safe, clean environment, and of course, the best in tires. All the tread designs, all the sizes for all vehicles, cars, pickups, SUVs, horse trailers, boat trailers. They've got them all. I urge you to stop in and also check out their great brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts and batteries, especially this time of the year, getting into the cooler weather towards fall and winter. Make sure your battery is going to do the job. If not, they've got the best available for you. Need to stop in and say hello to James in Buell, Dan on Pole Line in Twin Falls, Lane and Rupert, Mike and Jerome, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, the Twist family in Paul, Trent on Overland in Burley. And don't forget, too, during harvest, they have the best on the farm, on the dairy repair service. They'll send those big trucks out and get you running. Don't forget the best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. That's going to wrap it up. We killed enough time to make it to the top of the hour, and we'll find out what happened to Dr. Graves and reestablish another time. We'll be back here tomorrow morning starting at 8:06 right here on K-Bar, 12:30 a.m., and then streaming live all over the world. And thanks to all of our listeners all over the world for dropping us emails, etc., at zebbell.com. And thank you very much. We always say at the end of the program, the way things work were, the way things ought to be, and the 4 words that mean the most: in God we trust. You have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.